Welcome to this explainer. We're going to dive right in and completely demystify business research, giving you the ultimate blueprint for making rock-solid data-driven decisions. Look, whether you're launching a brand new product, trying to figure out what's going on with your workforce, or steering a massive organization, relying on just your gut instinct, it really doesn't cut it anymore. So today, we're walking through the exact life cycle of how you gather, analyze, and report information like an absolute pro. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll quickly hit the basics of business research, move into selecting your target audience, break down quantitative and qualitative methods, talk about analyzing that data, and finally touch on the ethics of business research. So let's kick things off with Section 1, the basics of business research. Think of business research as your ultimate mechanism for moving away from just guessing to actually knowing. It really serves three distinct purposes. You're either exploring brand new phenomena, describing the highly specific attributes of a market, or you're trying to explain the direct outcomes of your strategic choices. Now, when you're building out this knowledge base, you've basically got two main avenues. Primary research is all about getting your hands dirty, gathering fresh evidence totally from scratch, using things like surveys, interviews, or focus groups. Secondary research, on the flip side, leverages the absolute wealth of data, external reports, and statistics that other people have already taken the time to compile. Every great primary project starts with a blueprint, right? First, you have to identify a highly specific research problem. That problem sparks targeted research questions. From there, you set concrete objectives so you can actually measure your success, which ultimately culminates in hypotheses. Those are your testable predictions about how the market is actually going to behave. Moving right along to Section 2, selecting your target audience. Bottom line up front here, your insights are literally only as good as the people you study. How you sample shapes your entire result. You're either going to use random sampling, where everybody has an equal shot of being chosen, or non-random sampling, where you purposefully target very specific profiles. If you absolutely need a level playing field, random sampling is your go-to. You can go old school and pull names out of a hat with simple random sampling. You can tackle whole geographical blocks using cluster sampling. Or you can ensure you get perfect demographic representation by dividing people into subgroups, which we call strata first, before making your final selection. But hey, sometimes we have constraints, right? Time, money, access. That's where non-random sampling comes in. You might just grab whoever happens to be closest with convenience sampling. You might hunt down specific industry experts with purposive sampling. Or, my personal favorite, you might use a single initial contact to trigger a chain reaction of referrals, a really cool technique known as snowball sampling. All right, let's get into the hard data with Section 3, quantitative methods, the numbers. When you're running a business experiment, you're gathering targeted data by manipulating and measuring variables. Think of it like operating a machine. The independent variable, that's the dial you turn, the element you are directly manipulating. The dependent variable is the reaction you measure. It's the element you're hoping to affect by adjusting that dial. But real-world research is almost never perfectly sterile. As a researcher, you have to constantly be on the hunt for confounding variables. These are sneaky, hidden factors that secretly influence your results, making it incredibly difficult to isolate what is truly driving the change you're seeing. And this brings us to the oldest trap in the book, confusing correlation with causation. Just because ice cream sales and sunglasses purchases spike at the exact same time doesn't mean buying sunglasses causes you to buy ice cream. Obviously, they are both being driven by a third factor, the summer sun. Every single experiment hinges on two massive pillars. First is validity, meaning are you actually hitting the right target? And second is reliability, meaning can you hit that exact same target consistently every single time? Never, ever launch blindly. Always run pilot tests to iron out the operational kinks before you scale up the whole operation. Okay, let's switch gears. Section 4, qualitative methods, the nuance. While those hard numbers tell us what is happening, qualitative methods, they reveal the why. Whether you're diving deep into one-on-one interviews or hosting dynamic multi-person focus groups, you are hunting for the underlying motivations, the behaviors, and the deep context that numbers simply cannot capture on their own. To really draw out the truth here, you kind of have to play detective. You might use a technique called laddering to dig way down into someone's core values. Or maybe mirroring, where you repeat a phrase back so the participant naturally expands on it.
And honestly, sometimes the most powerful tool is a silent probe, literally just letting an awkward pause force a reluctant participant to fill the gap and keep talking.
Now we have to make sense of all this. Section 5. Analyzing and visualizing your data.
Making sense of all this messy, non-numerical data requires a really systematic process called qualitative data analysis. You dive in, you start coding by labeling specific sentiments, and then you group those labels into overarching themes. You just keep iterating this process over and over until you hit data saturation. That is that magical moment where reading yet another transcript yields absolutely zero new insights. You found everything there is to find. Once you've nailed down those themes, visualization is what brings them to life. By transforming all of that raw qualitative feedback into clean graphics, you can instantly show leadership exactly what's going on. Suddenly, it's crystal clear that issues like poor management, a lack of collaboration, and zero career growth are the real culprits driving something like employee turnover. And when it is finally time to present this to your stakeholders, you've got to embrace the bluff strategy. Bottom line up front. Hit your audience with your absolute most critical conclusions and recommendations right out of the gates. Once you've anchored the who, the what, and the why, then you can safely layer in all those supporting details.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6, the ethics of business research.
Ultimately, getting access to people's data is a huge privilege, and it demands strict responsibility. You absolutely must guarantee informed consent and shield identities through total anonymity and confidentiality. Above all, as a researcher, you have to act with justice and beneficence, meaning you avoid conflicts of interest while actively striving to maximize the societal benefit of the work you're doing.
From defining your initial problem all the way to analyzing the nuance and reporting it with total integrity, you now have the complete lifecycle blueprint. Research is hands down your most powerful tool for shaping strategy and predicting the future. So, I'll leave you with this thought. What problem are you going to solve first? And how will you ensure your search for the truth remains ethical, responsible, and completely fair?